So today, we're going to focus on, quiet please, dealing with equations that have fractions in them. And this is a skill that I use all the time, not only in algebra, but all the way through Calculus 3. And it is how to deal with solving equations that have fractions in them. And one thing that I always do is I know that I don't like dealing with equations that have fractions in them. So what I like to do is get rid of the fractions. So my way to get rid of the fractions is I multiply both sides by what's called the least common multiple. Now the least common multiple is also the lowest common denominator, so that's another way to think about it. So it is also that. And so what you have to do is look at your denominators. You don't have to look at all the numbers, but you're going to look at your denominators and decide, of your denominators, what is the lowest common denominator. So looking at the 2 and the 3. DJ? 6. So you have to multiply both sides by 6. Even though the right side doesn't need a 6, to keep the equation balanced, you have to multiply both sides by 6. This is what that accomplishes. When I distribute the 6 into the left side, I get 6x over 2 minus 6x over 3 equals 30. And then the whole goal, again, is getting rid of the fraction. So if I did my work correctly, I will have gotten rid of the fraction. What is 6 divided by 2? 3. So it's 3x minus, and what's 6 divided by 3? 2x equals 30. And then I can very easily combine like terms, and this is x equals 30. Okay?
So why would you distribute the 6 to the 2 and 3 right away?
Okay, that's a good question. Focus. So you're multiplying by 6. 6 is also known as 6 over 1. So when you multiply that in, this 6 gets multiplied by the numerator, but the denominator just gets multiplied by 1, so that doesn't change. Does that make sense?
Okay, but then how come you would simplify it then? Like when you...
Say that again?
Never mind. Forget it.
Other questions?
You just multiply the final.
Yes. So looking at this example, we have 13 minus x over 2 equals x minus 1/2. Over here. So what is the least common multiple, Denise? 2. So I'm going to multiply the left side by 2 and the right side by 2. Now, I have to multiply the 2 by everything, not just the fractions, because the equation must stay balanced. So 2 times 13 is 26, minus 2x over 2. Because 2 is 2 over 1. So 2 gets multiplied by the x. The 2 in the denominator stays at 2, because that doesn't change at all. Equals. Now over here, 2 times x is 2x. What's 2 times 1/2? Lisa? 1. Because what you think of is what's half of 2. Half of 2 is 1. Of means multiply. So that's a good way to think about it. Now I can, if I do this correctly, I will have gotten rid of all my fractions. So 2 over 2, or 2 halves is just 1. So the 2's cancel there. And I get 26 minus x equals 2x minus 1. So again, if I do this properly, I clear my fractions. And then I can solve the equation like I solved them last night, or the night before, depending on when I did my homework. So, Ava, do you want to get your x's on the right side, or do you want to get them on the left side? It's totally up to you.
Right?
The right. So what would you want to do to both sides to get the x's on the right side? Yep.
Add 1x to each.
Good. I would add 1x to each side. And then the 1x's cancel. So I get 26 equals 3x minus 1. Any questions on that step? Charlize, what's my next step?
The next step would be to take negative 1 or minus 1 and cancel it out. So what you would do is you would do plus 1 to cancel out 1 on both sides, which make 26 27.
Good. So we're going to add 1 to both sides. And we get 27 equals 3x. Lastly, we'll divide by 3. And the 3's cancel. And 9 equals x. And I was really happy with the amount of work you guys showed on this assignment. Okay, you showed your steps, and that is very important because you can't just go from the problem to the answer. You need to see the evolution of how did you get there. See the process. All right, questions on that? Denise, what would you multiply this problem by to clear the fractions?
4.
Yeah, good job. A lot of people, Brendan, would have said 8. But 8 is actually overkill. You don't have to multiply both sides by 8 because both of these numbers, while they both go into 8, they both also go into 4. So you would be fine multiplying both sides by 4. 4 is the lowest common denominator, or in other words, the least common multiple. So if I multiply by 4, I get 12x over 4 plus 4x over 2 equals negative 20. And again, if I do it correctly, I won't have any fractions. So Isabel, what do I get when I simplify these fractions?
3x plus 4.
And then I see that I can combine my terms. 3x plus 2x is 5x. Then I can divide both sides by 5. And x is going to be negative 4. Any questions? So the one skill we're adding is the ability to clear the fraction. You can only do this when there is an equation. If there's an expression, you don't have both sides because there's no equal sign. But if there's an equation, you can clear it. Charlize?
So there has to be 2 fractions in the equation to clear it.
No. You could have one fraction and do the same exact thing. It's just, it has to be an equation. Okay?
Okay. So for that first problem, how come would be negative 2 instead of negative 2?
For this one?
Yeah.
So you'd have 2 over 2.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
Good questions. Felicia,
Why would you use two for that?
one more time?
Use two to make
Okay, if you use 2, the 4 does not go into 2, because 2 is not big enough. 2 goes into 4, 4 does not go into 2.
I thought it was kind of
Right, so it's like this. If you have a fraction and you're adding 1/4 plus 1/2, what's the lowest common denominator? 4. Yeah, so that's how you want to think about it. Good. These are great questions. All right. Ashley, what's your lowest common denominator? In other words, least common multiple. It's for all 3 of these denominators.
all three.
Yep. 12. You guys think of anything lower than 12? Good job. Yep, 12 is the number.
Would it be wrong if you don't use the least one?
No, if you use a larger one, it's just the numbers will be bigger, but it's not wrong. So if I distribute 12, I get 12x over 2. 12 times 1 is 12 thirds plus equals, and here I get 12x over 4. Okay, and again, the test, if I did it correctly, is if all the fractions go away. So, DJ, what do I get when I simplify all these?
6x plus 4 was 3x.
3x. How do we feel about that?
Great.
So, Brendan J., which side do you want to get the x's on, the left or the right?
Right.
The right. So how would you get the x's on the right?
You would add -6.
Good. Add -6x to both sides. So 4 would equal -3x. And then we'll divide both sides by -3. Now, at this point, if you had a class last year where the numbers always turned out to be whole numbers, okay, this is not that class, all right? You're going to get fractions, and that is okay. So we get x equals -4 thirds. And again, you don't want to find the mixed number. You don't have to. You don't need to find the decimal. You just leave it. You just have to reduce it if it needs reducing. But there's no number that goes into both 4 and 3. So we're good. Okay, questions on that? Denise?
So you're really not multiplying like the number by anything? Because like the denominators stay the same.
The reason the denominators stay the same is 12 is the same as 12 over 1. And when you multiply numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator. So if I had, Denise, if I had, okay, you guys check this out. If I had 2x over 3, what's going on?
Huh?
You okay, Nambi?
Yeah.
Plus 4x over 7 equals 5, let's say. What would the LCD be? 21. Watch this, okay? This would be 42x over 3. Okay? This would be 84x over 7 equals 105. All right, I think it's throwing you for a loop that these are just x and 1, so it looks like we're not multiplying. You still multiply, but you're only multiplying numerators. The reason the denominators stay the same is because it's always going to be over 1. Other questions? Yes. I've heard of
so for the last problem, if I were to put -1.3 repeating, would you mark that as wrong?
No, because it is the same number, unless I specifically say, leave your answer as something other than that. But it's doing too much, why even do that, you know?
Okay.
But it's not wrong, because it's the same number,
Okay.
unless I say something else. All right, so you have a couple options here. Many Algebra 1, even Algebra 2 students would distribute because they've been programmed to distribute. But distributing makes more fractions, okay? It makes it so that both of these become fractions, but really you only have one fraction right now. You only have the -1/5. So what you can do right away is get rid of the fraction. What now would we multiply both sides by to get rid of the fraction? Good, by 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5. And if I multiply by 5, Shirley,
So it wouldn't be negative, I would just be 5.
it's totally up to you. You could do either. You just have to keep track. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. It's legal. Okay, you just can't do one thing to one side, one thing to the other side. If you multiply both sides by 5, these 5s cancel out. So you've gotten rid of the fraction on the left side. And so we have -1, because the negative's still there, times 3x plus 4 equals 5. Now we can distribute the -1. We get -3x minus 4 equals 5. Then we can add 4 to both sides. We get -3x equals 9. And then we can divide by -3. And we get x equals -3. You would have also gotten the same answer if you multiply both sides by -5. You would have also gotten the same answer if you distributed in that -1/5. The only way you're going to get different answers is if you make an algebraic error. Questions? I don't know if we're going to have time for that lovely problem. So here's your assignment.
Thank you.